The year is 1944. The Finnish-Soviet continuation war was nearing its brutal end in the frozen, desolate wilderness of Karelia. While the main fighting involved infantry and artillery, a far darker, more secretive conflict was unfolding over a piece of captured technology. This is the truth behind Operation Deep Dew, a mission so profoundly disturbing that the Soviet Union purged every single document related to the NKVD unit involved. The target was not a strategic point, but a small, isolated former Finnish military outpost deep within the forests, where a highly experimental, non-conventional weapon was believed to have been abandoned during the Finnish retreat. The unit dispatched was the 47th NKVD Night Assault Company, an elite detachment known for its absolute loyalty, psychological resilience, and capability for silent, high-priority confiscation missions. Their commander, Major Ivan Volkov, was an officer renowned for his iron will. Their orders were simple and absolute: secure the outpost, confiscate the technology, and eliminate all traces of the mission. No resistance was expected. The confiscated technology was a product of the desperate Finnish war effort and their close, though clandestine, scientific cooperation with German Antonov specialists in psychological and acoustic warfare. The device was known internally to the Finns only as Mielenväminen, the mind dampener. Allied intelligence fragments suggest this was an early prototype psychoacoustic emitter designed to flood a localized area with extremely high, focused sonic frequencies operating just at the threshold of human hearing. The Finnish objective was simple: create a temporary, non-lethal defensive perimeter that could induce massive disorientation, vertigo, and a total psychological collapse in advancing Soviet infantry. The NKVD learned of its existence through a compromised German liaison officer. The Soviets realized the immense strategic value of a weapon that could defeat an enemy unit without firing a shot, turning the mind against the body. This immediate, high-priority designation is why the 47th Company was dispatched under complete radio silence. Major Volkov's 47th Company reached the isolated outpost under cover of a heavy snowfall. The outpost itself was small, built of heavy logs, and surrounded by a makeshift, electrified barbed wire fence. Volkov's final log entry, a tiny fragment recovered years later from a seized NKVD transport container, is the only direct evidence of their arrival. It reads, "Objective reached. Outpost silent. No defensive perimeter active. Entering the primary structure. Too easy." The unit entered the structure, which confirmed the existence of the Finnish device, a massive, complex apparatus consisting of several large parabolic speakers and a central, high-frequency generator that was still partially powered down. The NKVD team's mission was proceeding exactly as planned, but the silence they encountered was not natural. It was the eerie stillness of a carefully laid trap. The tragedy began hours after the 47th Company entered the outpost. The NKVD log, which recorded automatic, coded hourly status checks, suddenly ceased. There was no distress signal, no coded warning, and no activation of the emergency beacon. Just total, unnerving silence. The subsequent investigation, launched by a regular Red Army patrol several days later, revealed a scene that defied all military logic and human sanity. The NKVD patrol found the perimeter untouched. No signs of external entry, no signs of a skirmish with Finnish forces. The horror was entirely internal. The Red Army patrol found the 47th Company, the elite NKVD unit, annihilated but not by an outside enemy. They were victims of a bizarre, localized internal slaughter. Bodies were mutilated not by bullets, but by knives, axes, and even their bare hands. Major Volkov's body was found in the central chamber, his hands severely damaged, clutching a broken piece of the psychoacoustic emitter. The scene was one of total, self-inflicted savagery, a complete breakdown of discipline and sanity. The NKVD immediately launched its own internal black investigation, codenamed Operation Sledgehammer. The initial conclusion, which was instantly classified top secret, was that the NKVD unit had been the victims of a chemical or biological agent, but forensic analysis found no evidence of external toxins or hallucinogens. The only unusual finding was a faint, highly localized acoustic anomaly detected by the forensic team's rudimentary sound equipment, centered precisely on the damaged Milan-Vejmenin device. This led the NKVD physicists to the horrific truth. The NKVD team had been wiped out by the very device they were sent to steal. Volkov, perhaps attempting to understand the technology, may have accidentally activated the emitter in an unstable state. The device, instead of generating a controlled defensive pulse, had unleashed a localized, amplified frequency cascade, overwhelming the sensory organs of every man in the outpost and driving them into an instant homicidal frenzy. The NKVD's elite had succumbed to uncontrollable, mutual insanity. The official classification of the incident under Operation Sledgehammer initiated a comprehensive, decade-long cover-up by the NKVD, driven by the absolute necessity of concealing the existence of the Finnish psychoacoustic technology. The NKVD's forensic physicists who studied the remnants of the Milan-Vejmenin at the Karelian outpost confirmed that the device was fundamentally based on high-power, directional infrasound technology, not just frequencies at the threshold of human hearing. Infrasound, operating below /BM 20/text hertz, is known to induce severe physiological effects, including anxiety, disorientation, organ resonance, and panic, but the Finnish device had amplified this effect to induce mass psychosis. The analysis revealed that the Soviet Major Volkov, in his attempt to understand or disable the device, had likely introduced a rogue electrical current into the generator, causing the ULF, ultra-low frequency, emitters to enter a lethal resonant feedback loop. This loop amplified the infrasound pulse to a catastrophic level, overwhelming the brain stems of the NKVD men and instantly triggering a primal, homicidal rage that they directed at the nearest moving targets, each other. The NKVD's subsequent actions were ruthless and systematic. The entire Karelian outpost and the immediate surrounding forest were declared a toxic waste exclusion zone, a cover story designed to prevent any future military or civilian access. NKVD special engineering units were dispatched to collapse the log structure, bury the Milan-Vejmenin remnants under tons of rock and soil, and systematically burn all surrounding vegetation that might contain forensic clues. This complete liquidation of the site was necessary because the NKVD feared that the physical evidence, the bodies and the device, would reveal two critical facts. First, that the Soviet Union lost an elite unit to a psychological weapon, and second, that such a weapon was technologically feasible and could be easily replicated. The memory of the 47th NKVD Night Assault Company was literally buried beneath the scorched earth of Karelia, their fate officially attributed to a fierce and unexpected encounter with Finnish stay-behind units, a line meticulously constructed to preserve the unit's honor and the technological secret. The most damning evidence of the long-term threat posed by the Finnish device came from the intercepted German documentation. During the final push into Germany, Soviet forces seized a highly classified Annenerb research dossier that contained detailed notes on acoustic warfare and psychological defense. The dossier included schematics that were a near-perfect match to the design principles of the Milan-Vejmenin. The German documents, labeled Project Shrek, confirmed the collaboration with Finland and, more alarmingly, detailed the device's potential for long-range psychological projection if scaled up. The notes of the German chief physicist, Dr. Klaus Richter, emphasized the device's capability to generate specific fear frequencies that directly target the human amygdala, effectively weaponizing the brain's own defense mechanisms. This intelligence provided the Soviets with the full technological blueprint for the psychoacoustic weapon and intensified their paranoia regarding Western, non-conventional defense capabilities. The knowledge gained from Project Shrek led the Soviet Union to immediately launch Project Golos, Voice, a highly secretive research program dedicated to replicating and, crucially, defending against the Finnish acoustic device. The NKVD scientists leading Golos used the forensic analysis from the Karelia massacre to determine the lethal frequency of the device, which was identified as a chaotic pulse centered around /BM 17/text Hertz, a frequency known to affect the visual processing center and induce extreme anxiety. The primary goal of Golos was defensive, to develop acoustic dampening technology for Soviet command bunkers and submarine hulls, recognizing that a psychoacoustic weapon could instantly paralyze an entire command structure. The secondary goal was offensive, to refine the technology into a deployable weapon. This entire research effort, which spanned decades, was predicated on the complete historical denial of the Operation Deep Dew disaster, using the memory of the dead NKVD unit as the secret, forbidden foundation of Soviet psychological defense strategy. The internal slaughter in the Karelian forest became the most highly guarded secret of the early Cold War's non-conventional arms race. The historical obliteration of the 47th NKVD Night Assault Company was meticulously enforced by the Soviet state apparatus, but the fear of the Milan Vaminin technology persisted. The NKVD, in its attempts to cover the tracks of the Operation Deep Dew disaster, created an extensive network of disinformation archives. We found a highly fragmented file from the KGB's Lithuanian branch, dated 1978, which contains a series of internal directives instructing regional archivists to replace all mentions of the 47th Company with details of a completely fictitious Northern Border Patrol incident involving a routine ambush. This widespread, standardized fabrication proves the commitment to absolute historical revisionism. The internal memo, however, contains a critical, unredacted footnote. The need for persistent denial is due to the potential for external replication of the /BM 17/text Hertz frequency effect. This footnote confirms that decades after the war, the KGB was still terrified that Western powers might accidentally or intentionally stumble upon the psychoacoustic principles discovered by the Finns, thereby exposing the Soviet vulnerability and their successful cover-up of the massacre. The geographical evidence of the NKVD's destructive frenzy in Karelia also survived in suppressed aerial photography. During a low-altitude, high-risk reconnaissance flight over the Soviet Union in 1958, a US U-2 spy plane captured images of the Karelian region. The resulting photographs, classified Project Icarus/Annex K 44, clearly show an irregularly shaped, circular scorched earth exclusion zone deep within the otherwise pristine taiga forest, the exact coordinates corresponding to the Finnish outpost. The U.S. intelligence analysts, unable to attribute the anomaly to a conventional explosion or military base, simply labeled it a non-standard environmental anomaly. Crucially, the U.S. analysts were unaware of the Operation Deep Dew files. They interpreted the scorched earth zone not as evidence of NKVD cleanup, but as a potential site of Soviet non-conventional weapons testing, thereby fueling a new wave of Cold War paranoia and accelerating the U.S. focus on acoustic and environmental warfare research. The cover-up had successfully fooled the world, but it also ironically intensified the very arms race it was designed to contain. The technical implications of the Milan Vaminin massacre had a direct, demonstrable impact on Allied military doctrine. The highly classified Annenerb dossier, Project Shrek, recovered by the Soviets, detailing the device's principles, was later partially compromised and leaked to the West through a double agent in the late 1950s. The U.S. Army's subsequent analysis of the principles of focused infrasound led directly to the development of early non-lethal crowd control technologies and a complete overhaul of protective gear for Special Forces units. The focus shifted to acoustic insulation and specialized helmet liners designed to dampen ULF resonance, a direct, unspoken response to the Karelian disaster. The terrifying lesson learned from the fate of the 47th Company was internalized. A highly trained unit could be instantly defeated and driven to commit collective suicide without the enemy ever having to cross a perimeter, simply by manipulating sound waves. The deepest, most unsettling part of the cover-up lies in the complete suppression of the human factor. The NKVD went to unimaginable lengths to erase the memory of Major Ivan Volkov, the commander of the 47th Company. Volkov's personal file was not just deleted. It was replaced with a fabricated history showing a peaceful death in 1946 from non-military illness. However, the forensic analysis from Operation Sledgehammer noted the commander's final, desperate act. His hands were severely damaged, clutching a broken piece of the psychoacoustic emitter. This suggests that Major Volkov, despite the instantaneous psychological assault, recognized the source of the madness and, in a final act of discipline or defiance, attempted to physically destroy the device. His final, failed resistance only confirms the sheer terror and the power of the Milan Vejmenen. The NKVD was forced to erase Volkov's true, horrific end, dying in a homicidal frenzy to maintain the narrative of the iron discipline of the Soviet officer corps. His story became the epitome of the forbidden truth, a hero denied a hero's death, erased by the very technology he was sent to secure. The final, total historical suppression of Operation Deep Dew became the foundational ethical and technological barrier for the emerging Cold War superpowers. The NKVD, now the KGB, realized that the most dangerous aspect of the Finnish technology was not its destructive power, but its potential for undetectable, mass psychological manipulation. The existence of a/BM 17/text Hertz frequency weapon that turned soldiers against each other was deemed a direct threat to the integrity of the state and military chain of command. The KGB's final act of erasure was the systematic destruction of all primary NKVD personnel files associated with the 47th Night Assault Company and Operation Sledgehammer, ensuring that no living or deceased official record could ever link the individuals to the Karelian massacre. This created a profound, bureaucratic black hole where an entire elite unit simply ceased to have ever existed. The American counter-response to the leaked Project Shrek data solidified the global cover-up. The U.S. Army, terrified by the prospect of contagious insanity deployed via infrasound, immediately launched Project Sentinel-C. This highly compartmentalized program focused entirely on creating non-conventional warfare defenses, including the development of advanced active counterfrequency emitters that could broadcast a dissonant, opposing signal to neutralize the /BM 17/text Hertz pulse. This research was never openly attributed to acoustic warfare. Instead, the U.S. military funded it under vague titles like atmospheric resonance dampening and seismic frequency studies. The vast resources poured into these deniable programs confirm that the fear of the silent Finnish weapon was a major, unspoken driver of the early Cold War technological competition. Yet the source, the massacre of the 47th NKVD Company, was meticulously kept secret to avoid the political and morale disaster of revealing the efficacy of the psychoacoustic weapon. The most enduring and haunting legacy of Operation Deep Dew lies in the geographical scar left in Karelia. Despite the intense NKVD cleanup, the scorched earth zone remained stubbornly barren for decades. The intense resonant feedback loop of the Milan Vejmenen had done more than just cause a massacre. It had chemically altered the soil structure in the exclusion zone, rendering it permanently toxic and unable to sustain life, an unforeseen side effect of the psychoacoustic energy pulse. This area, known only to locals by the Finnish name Morenmetsä, Goblin Forest, became a whispered legend of a place where madness and death reigned, the only enduring, physical memorial to the 47th Company. The Soviet military officially maintained the toxic waste cover story for over 40 years, only lifting the exclusion order well after the collapse of the USSR, a testament to the longevity of the secret they desperately tried to bury. The final, shocking truth of Operation Deep Dew is the revelation that the NKVD itself considered the Milan Vejmenen to be a failure because it was uncontrollable, yet its underlying principle became the ultimate source of global military paranoia. The elite 47th NKVD Night Assault Company were erased not because they failed to secure the technology, but because they proved the technology worked, with a devastating, uncontrollable efficacy that instantly transformed highly disciplined soldiers into raving, homicidal maniacs. The historical erasure served to protect the Soviet image of iron discipline and, crucially, prevented any global power from actively seeking to replicate the frequency that turns men against themselves. The internal slaughter in the frozen Karelian forest remains the ultimate, forbidden case study in the terrifying reality of weaponized sound. What do you think? Was this a military breakthrough or an operation they erased on purpose?